Yeah, well, Sid Hasan, thank you so much for joining us today at the DC Local Leaders Podcast.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the trip. You were actually in town because you spoke at Accelerate 220.
Was on a judging panel last night at George Mason in Arlington. Yes.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Oh, it's lovely. I was telling a few friends that, God, if I had the entrepreneurial bug at 19 or 20, the world would be a lot different for me. So I'm very proud of the youth and what they're coming up with. So fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's Accelerate 2022, not 220. That's right. Yeah. Did you? And so when you were getting started, I want to talk a lot about Mespoke and your journey through leadership and all the lessons you've learned. But did you do anything like that? Was it almost sort of like reminiscent of your days of pitching and getting out there and meeting people?
Yeah, a similar journey, Philip, in the sense that when I left the corporate world, I had kind of achieved a certain position where I was afforded to be on some boards. So it was a natural segue. I was on the board of University of Tampa, and one of the kind of curriculums that I chose to, be passionate about was their entrepreneurship school. So it was a great segue because I'd started, working with kids and helping them come up with their ideas and go through the journey. So it was a great kind of stepping stone into Mespoke. So absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So were you from Tampa? Are you from this area?
No, very kind of typical, atypical story. Son of two immigrants originally from Hyderabad, India.
Yeah.
Started kindergarten in Reston, high school in Chantilly, went to George Mason undergrad, and spent some time in Silicon Valley. Worked for a firm literally up the street, up Greensboro Drive from here. The very honorable Mahfouz Ahmed enabled me to go to Silicon Valley, and that was one of the greatest things that's ever happened in my life.
Yeah. How old were you when you went?
I went to Silicon Valley effectively almost 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So I was 34.
So you were 34 when you went to Silicon Valley, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What? So that's 2011. Yeah, just trying to get an idea of what was going on in Silicon. So it was in full swing with software, and I mean, I don't think YouTube was quite what it is now at that time.
Right. But
definitely Google was around. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. The big boys were in play, and a lot of what the very senior folks in the Valley had kind of predicted would happen in the future kind of was taking shape. That cannibalization of the market, where there would be a few very large companies that kind of ran tech, and that kind of happened. Google, your Facebook, your Salesforce.com, and a few others were kind of cannibalizing the market and, being the premier entities to kind of, you had to fit into one of those ecosystems to provide your customers with solutions.
What did you major in college?
Business and communications.
Yeah. So it wasn't a technology kind
No,
of major.
no, not at all.
Did you know that you were going to end up in technology? Was that a thing in the house that growing up, with your parents? Were they tech people? Were you talking about tech? Did you overhear any kind of conversations like that?
No, my parents were very hardworking folks that ultimately retired as real estate folks. And so my mother had a brokerage, and the only exposure I had to tech was through an internship at a very young age. And then my brother was a telecom SME here on Greensboro Drive at good old MCI.
Yeah.
So my brother was probably the guiding light towards a pathway in, technology and telecom.
Older brother?
Yes.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I'm the youngest of four. So I've got a brother who's a telecom person, then two sisters, one sister in Dubai, one who still lives in the area.
Yeah. And like growing up, where like what was it like growing up with your brothers and sisters? Were you guys close? Were you always in trouble? Were you kind of like as entrepreneurs, sometimes a lot of times they go against the grain even from the start. Were you a rule follower or were you a rule breaker?
I'd say, tried to fit in as much as possible. Coming from a very strong South Indian family, the youngest is a bit more coddled and spoiled. So I benefited from being a mama's boy.
Yeah.
But it's also given me some really good nature versus nurture qualities that I think are important as a leader or people that are out motivating others. I loved the 80s, Philip. I grew up in Fairfax City. I delivered the paper as a kid, the Fairfax Connection. I delivered the Washington Post as a kid. So it was a incredible portion of my life that I hold on to very near and dear to my heart still.
Did you play sports when you were younger?
I did. Very active. Every season there was either soccer, football, or basketball. So that was a very important part of my youth.
Yeah, team sports is a big part of it. Did you do that in college too, or is that something?
No, I wish. I still think I'm going to the NBA, but
I mean, what are you, 6'something"?
Yeah, 6'2". My parents, I think, said, "Listen, that's not going to work out. But you've got half a brain, so you stick with that."
Were they tough on you about grades, and was that always
very much?
Even though you were the youngest, it's like, look.
Yeah, very much so. Academics, as I'm sure you're well aware, is cornerstone of our upbringing as this generation of folks that have come to the U.S. to make it better for everyone else.
Right. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, so you were talking about how so Mespoke is what you're doing now after you left the corporate environment. What were you doing in that corporate environment? You're in Silicon Valley. Talk to us about how you kind of rose through the ranks and what that looked like for you, and what you were learning along the way, who you met, things that can be replicated.
Absolutely.
Mentors.
Absolutely. I benefited from having parents that knew other folks that were in, influential positions in technology early on. So again, back to Greensboro Drive, I interned on the other end of Greensboro Drive for a company called TMRI. It was eventually sold to one of the larger GovCons. And Dr. Khan gave me an internship saying, you should learn how to do quality assurance for software. I mean, this is circa 25 years ago. Yeah. So I've benefited from that. So started off as a consultant, Philip, and just worked my way up, finished school. And
were you a 1099 at that point? Like, were you?
No, I was a W-2 working my way up.
But you were learning the consulting business of how they were like earning those contracts and how to execute on them. You were kind of getting that frame of reference.
Absolutely. I kind of just worked my way up and ended up, one of my last consulting assignments was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of Congress. So it was supposed to be a 90-day assignment. We ended up being there 60 months. And I was the last man standing on that project that essentially stood up what is now the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board in DC. So I left that, and I think a few folks there I still hold in very high regard. Ray Schmidt and Troy Jones said to me, listen, you've got some other skills that some of us don't have. Move to the business side. So again, back to Greensboro Drive. I believe this street has paved the way for a lot of us. And early on, it was from the mall to Tyco, I think, down here.
Oh yeah, Tyson's is completely different.
Yeah.
Than even 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, if you were on your way up as a consultant, you probably worked for a company that was headquartered on Greensboro, between Booz Allen, SAIC, CACI, or Digital Intelligence Systems. So I took a chance and had a relationship with someone named Mahfouz Ahmed, who is the founder of a $1 billion company just down the street here called Dices. And he said, listen, it is very different to go from consulting to delivering projects to selling them. And I said, no, it can't be that hard. I'll try it. So he gave me a chance, nearly lost my job because it is a lot more difficult to be the butt in the seat, if you will, versus selling the project and the 6 to 9 month pursuit that it takes to getting it. So weathered that storm, landed some pretty sizable deals. I think if you were to ask Mahfouz, he would tell you that we landed our first multi-year MSA with USPS. So we unseated Lockheed Martin. But initially, when I took him the idea that we could do it, he said, listen, we're a small, staffing company at the time, maybe doing 75 million. He says, there's no way we're going to win this. I said, listen, we've got a relationship and I won't give up till we get there. I need you to support me. We landed that, and I just kept working my way up and closed more deals, and then eventually started to run a company in a region.
Yeah. So you were building sales techniques along the way, or like that seemed to be something that you had a tendency to go towards, and at least that's what I'm picking up. It wasn't necessarily the technological skills behind it. It was more the sales technique and understanding people and those soft skills. Were you doing any outside coaching, outside mentorship, outside things to kind of build that skill set along this time?
No, very insightful of you. I say this often every time someone brings up an accolade around Mespoke or our patents. I tell them, listen, I am only the smartest man in a room if I'm alone. But I think what I've benefited from, and perhaps because of my mother and my sister, who is one of the most influential people in my life, is that I think I benefit from a very strong EQ. So there's IQ and EQ. My IQ is as average as they come. But when you blend an average IQ with a very strong EQ, I think that's where magic happens.
Yeah.
The ability to understand, and perhaps, if you weave in serendipity and alchemy, which I live by, if you weave those in and have this human touch and human aspect, I think that goes a very long way.
Yeah.
So I in a nutshell, I think by the grace of God, I think I benefit from a very strong EQ.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, maybe because EQ is pretty much all I'm working with, right? This is my only skill set. This is what I do.
There's a 50-50 chance that one of us is smarter than the other.
Yeah,
there's two of us in the room.
I don't know. I'm mediocre at best at math, right? And this is what I do well. But I think you're right that business is done with people that we know, like, and trust. And you get to know, like, and trust people through the soft skills that happens. And the technical skills, there are people that are very good at that. I don't want to take anything away from those folks because they have the diligence to be good at those things that I don't have, right? I'd rather be doing this than doing that, where they're the other way around and we need each other. But when we can just kind of sit and talk with people, we're able to make things happen that wouldn't have otherwise happened if we were just trading technical information, right? We miss a lot. That's why text and even to an extent Zoom is never as good as being in front of someone, to feel that energy, to talk to them, to watch their facial expressions in real life and see that they're understanding what you're saying or that they enjoy being around your energy. And that, I think that takes us really far. Do you think that's a learnable skill if you don't have it? I don't want someone listening to say, well, I'm a great coder, but I really want to be where Sid is, and what do I do now?
It's not the easiest thing to answer, but you've brought up something that's very near and dear to my heart. I was always a functional person when I was a billable, consultant on behalf of. I've only had a few bosses in my life, so on the behalf of a few companies, I was always a functional person, and that skill perhaps is a segue from the EQ characteristic that I believe is very near and dear to me, is that the functional role on any billable or deliverable tech project, Philip, be it a business intelligence, be it software development, be it mobile dev or cybersecurity, the ability to be the liaison between business and tech is a invaluable asset, because business folks and tech folks often don't speak the same language. So what happens is when you have someone that has enough of the functional understanding of perhaps the database versus the stakeholder saying, I want a system that allows us to have single sign-on, just hypothetically. Well, that requirement that's on the back of a napkin, if you will, doesn't just become technology. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be orchestrated in the middle. So that EQ and that functional aspect is something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I think back to my days of Troy Jones in Sterling before the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of Congress had its beautiful offices downtown and in Sterling now, where Troy would call these Chinese fire drills. And I was always picked to attend these, and Troy was a direct report to Ray Schmidt. And he had become a person very near and dear to my heart, still to this day. And I said, why is it that you asked me to come? He's like, Sid, you have this functional brain that we need to be a part of the technical brains.
Yeah.
So he said, that's why you're here. So thank you for bringing that out. That means a lot to me.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, you said you explained with what you just said, like the reason why I love interviewing the CTOs. There's a lot of CTOs that say the T stands for translate. Yeah. And that's what they do most of the time.
Well said.
Right. And they've all said that same exact phrase in a different way, sort of, right? Yeah. But that they just understand that, and that ability to do that fascinates me, right? To be the bridge in the road between those two what seems like very different disciplines, right? Very different skill sets. But so Mespoke, so you decided what was that process like leading up to deciding to leave a corporate structure that has safety and security, probably consistent income? Because you're married, you've got kids, right? Or you have a life and a family. Where did all that start to happen in the journey leading up to Mespoke? And then I want to get into Mespoke and how to do something like that and what that feels like and what you're learning as far as mindset with that.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. And I'm not going to use a cliche, but it's very important that I think we get the message across for the next generation that you, just like the term influence, I strongly dislike the word influence. Like, that is not a proper career path for any youngster. The same could be said with entrepreneurship. I believe the pathway to entrepreneurship is accidental, and it truly is where innovation meets. Right? There is a difference, there's a fundamental difference between innovation and invention. So perhaps you are, and I'm going somewhere with this, which Mespoke is, you're going about your day and you're getting a coffee and you see the barista make a coffee and you think, my God, the way he's done this using the devices and the processes and the orchestration in between, there's some innovation here. We could streamline this. And that's where innovation occurs. I'm no exception. I accidentally stumbled upon an idea that I couldn't get out of my mind for many, many years until I did something about it.
What did that feel like? What were you doing about the idea? Were you journaling? Were you writing stuff down? Like, you had this idea and you're still working at this point and you're in a position of high responsibility. Where were you and what were you doing at the time?
I was in Silicon Valley and in the East Bay. And I benefited from living in a building where all the athletes lived, Philip. Yeah. And Mespoke is loosely inspired by my next door neighbor who played for the 49ers. Who? Demetric Evans, number 92. He played with Champ Bailey at Georgia and with the Redskins.
Yeah. Lineman.
Defensive end. And Demetric was at my house one day, and I'll never forget it. And I said to him, it looks like you've got, Nike Jordans on that were literally just laced up before you walked in. And there's some irony here. And he said to me, I've got a contract. And I said to him, you don't even play. I mean, you're fourth string. You need first string, second string. Heck, you need me to get hurt before you get the call.
Yeah.
He was 10th year in. And what I learned from our friendship, and then I had moved on, I moved back to DC, is that he benefited from two things. He had the rail, Jerry Maguire, aka Drew Rosenhaus, as his agent, and he played the game for 10 years. That if you have Drew or Jerry Maguire as your agent, you get these incredible contracts, and nearly every single one of the people on the 52-man roster, I think it's 52 or 53 right now, has a contract with Nike. That you have to wear Nike on the field, and they push you to wear it before and after, because you're a walking billboard. So fast forward from 2012 to go ahead.
So the players have a choice as to what cleats they wear when they're on the...
do not have a choice in the NFL. In the NBA, they do. Nike owns the monopoly on what you wear during the games.
Okay. So, but if I wanted to wear Reebok and I was in the NBA?
In the NBA, you can, because it's a one-off contract.
But
Nike has a contract for the National Football.
So no matter what you like wearing, you're wearing Nikes no matter what. Yeah. And that is with the NFL, and the players also benefit from that?
Yes. So you could epitomize this by saying, if you go back to the Dream Team winning the gold medal for basketball, Michael Jordan draped the flag over his shoulder to hide the insignia or the swoosh because of the stipulations. So there's a reason why that was done. He was the only person hiding that.
I don't think yeah.
So anyhow, to finish that kind of accidental kind of discovery, years later, it occurred to me that there was something there around this business model, that Demetric, despite the fact of being literally the last man on the roster, still had a $25,000 contract from Nike for merchandise. All he had to do in return was wear Nike before, during, and after the game. So there was that light bulb moment that happens, and this cannot be taught. The light bulb, there's no set pathway where this light bulb is due to go off. It's accidental.
But do you think that being inquisitive or being open to looking for these ideas is muscle memory? Like if you try to just think up a business plan or an idea every day, are you more likely to start looking for those things in your daily life? Or do you think it's a natural innate ability that you kind of just have or don't have?
So now you've brought up something that's very near and dear to my heart. I am forever what Carl Sagan said, a wonder junkie, and my son is as well. I thought two things would happen in my life as an adult. I would either be on Jeopardy or I would be in the NBA. Neither happened, but I believe my son has a shot at both of them. You brought up something that I think is fundamentally important to entrepreneurship. The ability to see things differently, question things, break things down, put them back together and say, this is just wrong. But curiosity, or the ability to be a wonder junkie, as Carl Sagan said, I believe is perhaps the top 2 or 3 skills for an entrepreneur.
But do you think you can...
Or as Simon Sinek says, the why.
Right.
What is your why?
The purpose.
It is so fundamentally important to entrepreneurship.
But see, but the why is like synonymous with passion too, right? But I guess, but do you think it can be learned? Is that something that you can build upon, right? Or do you just kind of, there's people that are that way? Not right, and there's no good or right or wrong answer. I just, I'm curious.
We have an investor in New York, and this man has become very near and dear to my heart also. I say that term often because I'm a sentimental, emotional, it's just who I am. I'm a giver and a pleaser. This man invested in Mespoke without a contract after meeting me for 5 minutes. Without a contract, he wired us money and said, I'm in. So we went back to ask him, and I said, at the time I said, Mr. Laskow, now he's become like an elder brother. I said, you've wired me money. We don't even have a contract. And he said, Sid, 2 things you will learn, or I will show you along the way. Is that 1, I have an antenna. 2, I don't think you're going anywhere with my money. And I think he also later on said, 3rd, my wife would probably spend the money that I sent you, which was sizable, on our next vacation. So very, very successful man. Where I'm going with this is grit and perseverance. Those 2 things, I'm no scientist, but I believe that's something you're born with.
Really?
I don't know if every man is born equal. And I know this may offend some people, but I don't know if I believe in tabula rasa, a clean slate when everyone's born. Because I believe genetically and from a DNA standpoint, we all are offspring of our, the people that have come before us from a bloodline. And I think some of us are given some gifts that others do not have. From a mental standpoint, grit and perseverance, I don't think can be taught. To finish out the story about Mr. Laskow, this man, self-made car part salesman, now in a massive way up and down Connecticut to New York, tells me a story one day of his mother passing, which was a very sad moment in his life. He said he made all the arrangements, paid for everything, went to her funeral, was in the shop by like 6 a.m. Still at work on time. Those are qualities, Philip, that you cannot learn at George Mason or at Harvard or at MIT. It's just something it's a part of your DNA.
I agree 100%. They don't teach that in school, right? But I think those things, at least from even in my own experience, right? I wake up at 4:30 every morning. I didn't start off wanting to do that. And I never want to do it, but I do it anyway.
Right.
To build grit, resiliency too. Just because I'm tired, there's no reason to not do it. And I do this thing that I borrow from Mel Robbins. I don't know if you know Mel Robbins, but she's got something called the 5-second rule. Not the thing about the food, but she counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she takes action to whatever she's doing. So I do that every morning. I take some deep breaths.
Right.
Like I wake up and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I get up. There's no turning back at that point.
Right.
And I take a cold shower every day. Never want to do it.
Like
but
Anthony Robbins says.
Yeah. Tony Robbins. That's
Tony Robbins.
That's my guy. Yeah. I mean, his name's Anthony, but that's Wim Hof. A lot of people talk about that. And this isn't about me, but like the point is that I'm kind of like, I'm hoping what you're saying isn't true, because I'm purposely taking actions to build resiliency, to build grit, so that I have that muscle memory built in there, that those synapses, neurons that fire together, wire together, so that they get in there. That like when, building a platform like this, building a company, doing things, you're going to hear the word no more than you hear the word yes. You might only hear 1 or 2 yeses, but those are the ones you needed. But you heard 1,000 no's to get there, but those 1,000 weren't a reason to not keep going to 1,001, because that,
well said.
That kind of thing. But if I'm not, and as younger people, there's no subject in school for that. Sometimes that's why I asked you about sports, because you played sports, and we get that in sports because you don't win all the time. You might not even start. And you know what? That other guy might be taller than you, stronger than you, and hit you, and that kind of thing. But is that a reason to walk off the field? Probably not, because you'll never get that position if you do, right? So the athletes, most people that I interview have some sort of discipline around them. And it's either music or sports. And even in sports, sometimes it's team sports. Sometimes it's individual sports, running or swimming or something.
Right.
There seems to be something there that like the discipline. I think so. Grit and resiliency starts with discipline, right? That's how you get there. And I think discipline and maintaining a routine is something. If it's not easy, you got to force yourself.
Right.
But you can. Not everyone will, because people like comfort more than like discomfort.
Well said.
But I think maybe you could. I don't want to like push back too hard, but I feel like I'm hoping that, because I'm a guy, I don't know if I have grit or resiliency, and like, what if I don't? That means I'm barking up the wrong tree.
I don't know. And I say this often to our attorney and our RCO, Karen Stoltz, and Bobak Monogemi at Polsinelli. I tell them often that when I am asked, like, why didn't you do this earlier, or why didn't you make that decision? Now I'm going to say something that may sound odd to you. I simply tell people, one, I will never be the smartest man in a room unless I'm alone. Two, the brain I have today is not the brain I had yesterday. Goes back to being a wonder junkie. Mm-hmm. So when people say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I simply tell them, look, I'm going to tell you something that you'll have to think about 6 times to understand what I'm telling you. And that is simply this. I didn't know it then. Mm-hmm. I know it now.
We don't know what we don't know.
So I can't make decisions that I don't have answers for, because it's on the job learning.
Well, you needed that experience with that neighbor who you couldn't have planned that you were going to live next to. I mean, you picked that building, but you didn't pick it because you knew he was in there.
No.
You couldn't have planned that experience, and you couldn't have planned the idea you would have had by learning the information he shared with you.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying.
Right.
But all right, but but I want to dig back into that. Please. So you had this idea, right? The light bulb went off. You have this new investor now, but
there was a few steps in between.
Yeah. What's going on? And are you married at this point?
Yes.
You're married. You have kids.
I have a youngster.
And
love of my life is likely 3 years old.
3 years old. So you have a 3. So that's pretty young. Getting ready to start like either school or preschool or something, right? Is your wife working too?
No.
So your wife's not working, and you just moved back to the DC area.
No, I was actually in Tampa on my last assignment for the digital intelligence systems.
All right.
And I was asked, when I kept telling people there's this idea that I have this idea that I mean, keep in mind, the world was a lot different in 2013 than it is now. It's almost a decade ago, almost.
Yeah.
And I benefited from getting an introduction to, now I chuckle when I say it, but a man that's known as the tattooed MIT lawyer. So Brent Britton is our outside counsel. So he's got a sleeve of tattoos, but he's also a mad scientist genius that lectures at MIT. So I said, Brent, can I come in and I want to show you this idea? He said, by all means, it's what I do. I work with entrepreneurs. So I went in and whiteboarded it, and a week later he said, Sid, come in. I want to chat with you. He said, what you're doing is interesting to me. I don't think it's being done, and I urge you to do something about it. So I said to him, well, what the hell do I do now? I mean, I'd never started a company from scratch. I'd never written a B plan. I didn't have a lemonade stand as a kid. He said, you need an executive summary, you need some co-founders, and you need a B plan. And he said, I'll put all of that in motion. And in fact, he said, I'd like to be along for this ride. So he came on as our outside counsel. So it was Brent Britton that validated, because it's wonderful if your family does, your son, like, oh, Dad, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sure. But when an MIT trained IP attorney says, you're on to something, you do something about it. Then I said, look, I got some validation here. Let me do something about it.
Did he give you templates or a place 100%. To start? So you were able to get that. Now, did you ever have mentors around or people that you talk to and bounce ideas off of, and to even get to this point? Like,
of course. Again, I didn't say it early on, but I believe if we could tell the youngsters that are in undergrad now or grad school, I believe the most invaluable thing they can take away, apart from the degree, is a mentor.
Yeah.
So in fact, I look after at any given time 2 to 4 kids.
Yeah.
For the call for a check-in and make sure they're on the right path.
Do you find yourself learning from them also? That as you help them and as they ask you questions, it's their questions that teach you lessons too?
Oh, the world is cyclical, Philip.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is one continuum that just goes, and everything that is old will become new again, and every moment returns again in time.
Yeah.
Just how life is.
All right. So Mespoke, like what does Mespoke do then? So you had this, you're on a great track with this idea. You know, you've got a family to look after, but it sounds like things are happening at this point. What's going through your mind, and how do you make the decision to leave one and go to the other? What do you say to your wife? Like, hey, I'm not 100% sure this is going to work out, but I think it's going to be okay. Or like, what's that conversation like?
I mean, I'm not sure who you're married to, but it's a different conversation in the real world. It's very scary. I mean, and look, I had rolled up my sleeves and gotten to a very, very comfortable position where no one had to worry. And
so you had savings? You had like
we had yes, all of the above. But when you tell someone you're going from X standard of living to no money coming in, but money only going out, that gap, in accounting, that their incomes, therein lies a problem when you've got more debits than you do credits than you have debits. Sorry, debits and credits.
And I'm sure you did the division and you figured how many months you had until it's like, all right, we got.
I was fortunate to have some key family members around that said, look, we'll go in on this. It may be scary, but we'll go in on this. So we had savings, and then some key family members that were along for the ride.
Were you doing anything to place that fear or right size that fear? Any journaling? Any like, what did you do with those feelings? I'm assuming, so, the feeling of impending doom that will set in inevitably when you're doing anything new, right? Especially something entrepreneurial. It's a natural human tendency. It sets in. What did you do with all that fear? Like the what ifs and that weasel that's in the brain that's just constantly like, I like to live up catastrophes that have never happened yet and think up rebuttals for arguments that never occur.
Well said.
That's just something that happens. Like, I don't know if you're like me, but
it's a bit of a conundrum for me. While I'm sentimental and emotional, and I don't think I'm alpha, but I think when someone doesn't know me but meets me, may think I look and sound alpha. I am not. So I don't like struggle. I don't like conflict. And I don't like change. I know this sounds crazy to you, but I don't like my habits to change. I'm happy to think about the future being different than the present, because that's just how it's going to be. But I just keep it all to myself, and I guess you could call it a journal on my phone, where I'm constantly either literally waking up in the middle of the night saying, holy moly, we need to think about this, or we need to do this. So I've got a running ledger, if you will, on my phone that I keep.
You type it?
Yeah, so I just take notes. I've got a notes folder.
And does it give you a sense of relief that like, okay, what do you do with the list then?
So it'll go on a list. Then if it's a priority, if it's enough of a priority, it'll go on my reminders.
Okay.
So I'll constantly have to look at it. Like this morning, I've got 6. You're on my reminders for this morning. Be at Philip's office by X time. So it'll go from a fleeting idea to documented to a reminder to an action.
Okay.
That's just how
that's how you do it.
Crazy brain works.
All right. You mentioned a keyword, habit, and we haven't really gotten to what Mespoke is yet. So I definitely want to make sure we get there. But the habits are going to be fun because I love learning. What are your daily? Do you have a morning routine, or do you have a daily routine, or what are your habits to maintain what you're doing now, who you are now, and how you show up now? But I'm assuming you had to be doing something back then too to not go crazy.
Yeah. So for us, it's an interesting one. We have a kind of co-located development team. So our development teams have always been in Southeast Asia. So they're +9 or +10 giving daylight saving time. So the first thing I have to do in the morning is make sure I go to WhatsApp and I make sure we have no issues, because if you do the follow the sun, when I'm sleeping, they're waking up and there's either issues or no issues or requests. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I do, because if I miss that window, Philip, where they're +9, I will miss them because they'll go to sleep.
It'll be a whole nother day.
And I'll miss a whole day. I'll have to follow the sun again. So the first thing I do is immediately check WhatsApp, and then I'll check email just to make sure we have no issues. Our public cloud didn't go down, or we didn't have an API that failed, or a call to the database is okay. So that's the first thing I do. And I know it's probably not the best way to start the morning, but when you've got this kind of offshore development team, you've got to look into that. So my morning is a check down of digital stuff. And then I've got this human being in my life who's 8 years old, who is the best thing that's ever happened in my life. I literally feel like I have a debt to my son. And so then it's, breakfast, chit chat with him, and he's got his own shenanigans that we do. So my day is first thing in the morning in bed, literally is these days 6:15 to 6:40 a.m.
So then it's what, 3 p.m. there?
Yeah. So +9, yeah. Yeah, +9 or 10, depending on where they are that day.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a digital check down, make sure there's no fires, answer questions, and then my little boy is up to his shenanigans, which I love. And then it's he's off to school.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then your day begins. Do you follow any sort of are you still working out? Are you still doing sports? Are you still doing yoga, meditation?
Yeah. I just got back into working out. Yeah. So I'm very proud of my gym time.
Yeah.
So I take it around certain blocks where I know where I've got 45 minutes to myself.
Yeah. But so it's a moving target, or is it every day
typically an AM, and depending on if I need to be video Zoom in the afternoon, I'll switch to look presentable by the afternoon. Otherwise, I'm audio. So a lot of our calls are audio based, but there are some that are video based as well.
Okay. And did you start that? I mean, your son was a lot younger then, but did you start kind of having that system in place early on, or is that a new thing for you?
Fairly new, a couple years now.
What made that change? Is the company growing, and now you felt like you needed to have this new routine, or what brought that about?
Well, there are these kind of peaks and valleys that we go through where we're developing, and the team is much bigger than it is the core team. So at the core team, I've got a phenomenal CEO, Karen Stoltz, who's local Reston based, and then we've got outside counsel, and then we've got IP counsel. So the core team, the nuclear team is very small, but when we're developing, which we just finished 6 months of developing now, it's a much larger team.
Okay.
So the schedule changes, the habits change when we're developing versus business as usual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's cyclical based on the business.
Right.
So Mespoke. What is Mespoke? What do you guys do? You're that neighbor of yours set you on this path, and here you are.
From an optics standpoint, people think we're a fashion company and a shopping company. Now, that is the fundamental thing that we do. We disintermediate and democratize influence. Anyone and everyone can upload a photo to our platform, use our AI, and we will allow them to create a shoppable link that's embedded in the content. Our patent essentially creates a pathway to kill the hashtag, because we and two other gentlemen that are farther ahead of us, Matt Zeller in New York, who's been funded by Google, are on a path to kill the hashtag. It served its purpose for nearly 3 decades. The internet came out 1989. So a lot of the compute power, the inputs to algorithms are just no longer needed, because AI, computer vision, machine learning can glean artifacts or metadata from content now. So let me say this in simple terms. Let's say hypothetically you uploaded a photo of your outfit, which is stunning, by the way, to Mespoke. In a split second, we would read your whole photo, and we would tell you, we know you're wearing a watch, a blazer, a shirt, and trousers. And then if you had some historical data in our database, we would say, we know if you want to tag this, Philip, this blazer, that we know based on your patterns in the database for this category, because we know who you are, we know what category you're tagging, that you're likely wearing Brooks Brothers or Gianluca Isaia, just hypothetically. With confidence, we can tell you that this is the brand. And if you say, yes, we will publish this inside of our content, inside of our app, your photo with a shoppable link inside your photo back to brooksbrothers.com. So now if you think about what Forbes has said about Mespoke, Mespoke is a company to watch in the world for creating Facebook ads on steroids. With one click, someone will go from your photo to brooksbrothers.com, while our algorithm is giving you loyalty points.
So, and is it's sort of like, I hear that almost like affiliate marketing in a way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because
it's a rev share model.
Right. Brooks Brothers, likely someone who buys the blazer that I'm wearing will know that they came from my picture at Mespoke, and that's why they bought that's why they bought that blazer, because they saw me wearing it, thought it was cool, ordered their size, Brooks Brothers benefits, right? So do I pay a service to you to be on your platform? No.
This is where the democratization happens. We believe everyone's influential. Go back to the Demetric Evans. He might as well have been 16th string.
Yeah.
He was never going to get the call, but still had a sizable contract with Nike. The irony there is that if you and I were in Union Square in San Francisco and we saw a certain persona of a man, 6'5", 275 pounds, certain ethnicity, wearing the swoosh head to toe, we immediately would look over and look back and think .com-er, millionaire, celebrity, baller, or football player. We would think something, despite the fact that we couldn't ask the gentleman for his autograph by his name. You don't know his name, but you assume. So that's where the light bulb came on.
Uniform on.
Well, no, this is in Union Square in the afternoon, not on Sundays, not 16 Sundays out of the year. They wear their jerseys 16 Sundays out of the year. That's it. I'm talking about him in broad daylight on a Tuesday night. The light bulb there is that we are all influential. And Mr. Knight at Nike said, look at Michael Jordan. He said, the subliminal message will be done based on the persona. So now what we've done is filed a patent that says, let's embed the hashtag that you would put on Instagram on Mespoke, make it a shoppable link. And when your community interacts with your content and goes shopping, make you the influencer or the recipient of a reward. So consumer to business. Mm-hmm. So not business to business, not business to consumer, but a consumer that has inspired another consumer, and we send a ticket to the brand. Mm-hmm. They're just getting an order entry ticket, while you get some credit or what we call social capital.
Right. And so how does Mespoke benefit then?
So we are very much an IP play. So we raise enough capital to get our patents done to grow the community to enough of a base that flushed out our methodology and our business plan. What we have decided to do is just focus on IP, and that's build algorithms, build artificial intelligence, and file patents.
For the machine learning to look at the picture and extract what type of, how is it doing that? Is it looking at stitching patterns and referencing other things to know, like, these manufacturers generally do this? Like, what's happening?
In the old days, we used to call it OCR, optical character recognition. Now that's been revamped as computer vision. So essentially, the algorithm uses data points that are at a Latin long or some resolution in the photo and says, here I believe I see a structure that looks like a sport coat, or here I see a structure that looks like a woman's handbag. And then it comes back with confidence. It says, I'm 74% sure that this is a woman's handbag. The second part of the machine learning that you alluded to is done on pattern matching of the database. Because this is something very important to me, Philip, is that unless you're God, there's only one way to predict the future, and that is to understand the past. So based on your historical pattern matching, we then suggest this, we know who you are, we know what category you're tagging, and you, with high confidence, either tag Brooks Brothers for this category, Isaia, or Prada. Yeah. And we suggest those to you.
How you do the first one, though? Do I tell you what I normally wear?
We need a bit of data to come up with some suggestions. I mean, it's just like if you and I now go to our phones, I guarantee you, if your phone is on and is listening, you will start seeing Isaia and Prada advertisements in a vertical scroll on social media.
Yeah. Does that scare you at all?
No, it's the world we live in. I mean, it's an opt-out world, which is quickly changing to an opt-in world. I know that's a mouthful, but it's an opt-out world that is changing to an opt-in world. So if your Alexa at home right now doesn't have the mute or do not listen turned on or enabled, they hear everything.
Well,
and that leads us to Web 3.0 and what the future holds, and why we believe Mespoke's tagging enables a core function of 3.0, Web 3.0, that is literally around the corner.
So, and this is a separate app that you download.
Standalone community that is iPhone based, Android based, and now through a lot of hard work, we are browser based. So you don't have to download an app anymore.
Okay. So you can go right on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You can take pictures of yourself in your favorite outfits, upload them to...
And video as well.
And video.
Yeah.
And so what about haircuts and things like that? Is there any way to...
We try to stay very kind of like a skinny offering and perfect one category, and that was by choice apparel and beauty. It's a massive segment. I mean, think about your closet versus your garage. You've got one car, but I guarantee you probably have
tools and whatnot.
200 items in apparel things you can apply, wear, or hold. So we started with fashion. We stayed there. So our algorithms are focused on that. We do believe the opportunity next would be health and wellness products and consumer product goods. So CPG as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's endless possibilities with stuff like this, right? I mean,
you know, we hear this often, and it's very encouraging to say that, look, at the crux, what we've done is enabled anyone and everyone to showcase their love of a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a perfume. And if someone else is inspired by that, to go with one click back to the merchant of record. That could be said for anything. You know, wine, women's lipstick, pet accessories.
Yeah, I mean, you've created so YouTube, right? It's YouTube. Anyone can go on YouTube and create videos, right? And tag them and start talking about things that they like. But you've created that with fashion, right? Like,
I think we owe a debt to two men that created this pathway that a lot of us are on now. And whether you like it or not, it's Jeff Bezos and Craig Newmark of Craigslist. We owe those men a debt. It is, I just recently read this, that if you think about every B2C consumer play that affects the last mile, it was a category on Craigslist. Every single thing. It's a brilliant article. If I find it, I'll forward it to you. And then if you think about what Jeff and Mackenzie started, 27 years ago when they left Wall Street, it's disintermediation. It's the ability to provide consumers with access to the system of record or the manufacturer of record directly and cutting out the people in the middle. Jeff started that with his little company called Amazon. So Jeff Bezos and Craig at Craigslist are owed a debt to nearly everything we do today, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. I mean, so, you know, there's one question that I want to make sure that I ask you for sure. Now that we finally got to what Mespoke is, which sounds awesome.
Well, if you could tell a few billion people for us, we'd thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody listening to this podcast knows about it now.
Lovely.
But, you know, I ask a lot of people about, so we talked a lot about, you know, how we deal with the fears. I ask every leader about gratitude, and I ask every leader about what I call the jumping off point. And so this is a moment in time, and it can be described in two different ways. Moment in time where you just don't know what to do next, but you know you can't keep doing what you're doing, right? Where you have to make a change, and it's this jumping off point where you just can't keep doing what you're doing. You don't know what to do next. And some other people have really, when they thought about it, it usually points back to a moment in time where you're probably either consumed with fear, or you look at the time, you felt like it was a horrible experience, a negative thing that was happening, a bad experience. And now you look back and you're just grateful for the fact that happened, because you wouldn't be who you are and where you are and doing what you're doing if that didn't happen. But at the time, the perception you had was, why is this happening? I don't want this to be happening. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but like, do you think, like, can you think back at any point in time where you've had to deal with that thought and overcome that?
Absolutely. I think if it weren't for a certain episode in my life to go from consulting to business, I perhaps would not be sitting here with you today.
What was that?
We were rolling off of a project. It was a very small company, local company, and a lot of us, several people were laid off. I was one of them. Got a little bit of a severance, but it enabled me to take a chance on something called sales and marketing versus billable consulting. If that wouldn't have happened, I perhaps never would have had the courage to move to the business side. I would have just been a billable asset, worked my way up 1099. Let's say I made, several $100s an hour, or let's say 200, 250. Great life here in Northern Virginia. But that one moment in time enabled me to have the courage that I otherwise would not have found on my own, to step outside and say, if enough people are saying this, it's one person saying it's like, they may just care for you or whatever it is. But if enough people are saying the same thing, I said, it's time for me to make a change and try this thing out.
Yeah. So you took that wasn't your natural tendency, but you did it anyway.
Do not like change.
Yeah. And then over time.
In habits. My mind is different, but in habits.
Yeah. But going back to, you were building that skill set in sales by doing it more often. You were constantly putting yourself in a position to keep learning that same lesson or, improve upon that lesson. I'm finding some hope in this because we were talking earlier about like, I don't think everybody had, I was like, well, I hope not, because I'm doing all kinds of stuff to try to build that. I don't know. It sounds like it might have happened without you recognizing that, like, hey, like, it was happening, right? Because without that, I'm sure getting laid off. Were you married at this time too?
No. This is years ago.
But still, having a job and then coming in and not having a job anymore is definitely it'll generate some feelings in you.
It'll humble you.
Yeah, but being able to overcome that, work through that, and take the next best step, that ultimately led you to taking probably 20 or 30 other best steps that led you up to where you are now, right? Probably more than that, but those big impactful ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. You never know where that pivotal, when you're doing, my son loves dominoes, when there's a fork in a domino path, that one domino that sets you on a different path is just, it can be magical, but very, very scary.
Yeah. What about gratitude? So some people are different about this. Some people have a practice around gratitude and some people don't. I make a gratitude list. It could be my hands and fingers work, my feet work. I slept inside, not outside today, so I'm looking pretty good. Things are going well. Like whatever, start minimal, and then there's other big things that I'm really grateful for too. But that's me. Like maybe you don't. Like how's that work into your life? And
it is a critical part of my life. It's a critical part of my DNA. I am grateful. If you had my son on, he would tell you my father says, God have mercy.
Yeah.
Literally, my father said it. I say it every
I heard
1 hour.
Before you started.
Heard me say it? Yeah. So I say, God have mercy. In Hindi, it sounds a bit different, or Urdu. But I say it almost every half hour. My son will tell you,
what's it mean for you when you're saying it? Like, what'd you learn from your dad?
I just am grateful. I mean, I used to be very active on social for obvious reasons with Mespoke, but now I've got a weekly post where I say, dear God, I'm grateful. Nearly every Friday, I'll put up a post and say I'm grateful. Gratitude, paying it forward. As you get to know me, perhaps you will realize I try to pay it forward. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Every single day of my life.
Yeah. So you're a big action towards your gratitude kind of person.
100%.
Yeah.
A few of my close friends would tell you, if someone does one thing for me, I will likely do 10 things for them in return.
Yeah.
Gratitude is very important. Gratitude and empathy. Very, very important.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, man. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Philip.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.